whispers in the silence. Sophia Reyes clutched her worn leather bag as she stood at the imposing wrought iron gate. The Patterson estate sprawled before her, all clean lines and modern angles that somehow still managed to look warm against the autumn backdrop. Her credentials as a speech therapist had landed her this interview, but it was desperation that made her hands tremble as she pressed the intercom. Yes. The voice that answered was deep, distracted. I'm Sophia Reyes. For the position? A pause, then a buzz as the gate swung open. She walked the stone path, autumn leaves crunching beneath her sensible shoes. The house seemed to watch her, windows like careful eyes. Marcus Patterson had been clear on the phone. His son Oliver, 8 years old, was on the autism spectrum, and nonverbal. They'd been through 5 therapists in the past year. Sophia would be responsible for Oliver's speech therapy sessions, helping with his daily routine, and occasionally watching him when Marcus had late meetings. The pay was excellent, enough to cover her mother's medical bills and her own rent without the 3 other jobs she currently juggled. The door opened before she could knock. Marcus Patterson was younger than she'd expected, perhaps mid-30s, with dark hair prematurely streaked with silver at the temples. His eyes were the same steel gray as the architectural models visible behind him in the spacious foyer. You're punctual, he said, as if this surprised him. Come in. Sophia followed him through the house, noting the careful organization of everything. No clutter, but plenty of evidence of a child, specialized sensory toys neatly arranged on shelves, visual schedule boards, and colorful communication cards. Oliver is in the sunroom, Marcus explained, his voice softening slightly. He doesn't do well with new people, so we'll observe first from the doorway. When they reached the sunroom, Sophia's heart caught. A small boy with a mop of chestnut hair sat surrounded by architectural drawings, meticulously lining up colored pencils by shade. The sun caught his profile, highlighting cheekbones that mirrored his father's. He loves buildings, Marcus whispered. Takes after me, I suppose. Sophia nodded, studying Oliver's movements. May I? She asked, gesturing toward the room. Marcus hesitated, then nodded once. Sophia entered slowly, not approaching Oliver directly, but settling on the floor several feet away. She took out her own set of colored pencils and began drawing simple shapes, humming softly to herself. She didn't look at Oliver, giving him space to acknowledge her presence in his own time. After several minutes, she felt him watching her. She continued drawing, then gently pushed a blue pencil toward him. This blue would make a beautiful sky above your building, she said quietly. Oliver didn't take the pencil, but his eyes flickered to her drawing, then back to his own. I see you're creating something magnificent, Sophia continued, her voice melodic but not overly animated. The lines are so precise. From the doorway, Marcus watched with a mixture of hope and skepticism. He'd seen this before. Therapists who claimed to understand Oliver, who promised breakthroughs, only to quit when progress came too slowly. What he hadn't seen was Oliver sliding one of his precious drawings toward a stranger, as he did now toward Sophia. Thank you, Sophia said, examining the drawing with genuine interest. You've captured the proportion perfectly. Oliver returned to his work, but the barrier had shifted, just slightly. Later, as Sophia prepared to leave, Marcus walked her to the door. When can you start? He asked, his professional facade cracking just enough to reveal the exhausted father beneath. Tomorrow, Sophia replied, glimpsing a photograph on the entry table. Marcus, Oliver, and a woman with kind eyes and Oliver's smile. The photograph was dusty, as if Marcus couldn't bear to touch it, but couldn't put it away either. As she walked back down the stone path, Sophia felt the weight of more than a job offer. This broken family needed something she wasn't sure she could provide. But as the autumn wind whispered through the trees, she made a silent promise to try. building bridges. The first weeks at the Patterson home fell into a rhythm that Sophia hadn't expected. Each morning she arrived as the sun bathed the east-facing windows in gold. Marcus would be in the kitchen, preparing Oliver's precisely cut breakfast while simultaneously reviewing architectural plans on his tablet. His efficiency was impressive, if not slightly mechanical. "Good morning," Sophia would say, and each day Marcus's nod became a little less perfunctory. Oliver's routine was sacred. Any deviation resulted in meltdowns that left both father and son exhausted. Sophia observed carefully, making mental notes but suggesting no changes initially. Instead, she inserted herself gently into the existing framework, becoming a steady presence rather than a disruptive one. "I notice he responds to music," Sophia mentioned one evening as Marcus reviewed her daily notes. They sat at the kitchen island, the house quiet after Oliver had gone to bed. Marcus looked up, his perpetual furrow deepening. Eliza, his mother, used to sing to him. The name hung in the air between them, an acknowledgement of the absence that shaped their days. "I've been incorporating melodic speech in our sessions," Sophia continued carefully. "He seems more receptive when language has rhythm." She didn't mention how she'd discovered this. During a particularly difficult day when Oliver had become overwhelmed by a construction noise outside. While Marcus frantically called the workers to stop, Sophia had instinctively begun to hum, then sing softly about the building growing tall, the beams stretching to the sky. Oliver's screams had quieted as he listened, his breathing gradually steadying. "I'd like to try something new tomorrow," Sophia said. "A communication board with musical elements." Marcus hesitated, protective instincts visibly warring with hope. What exactly would that involve? Sophia explained her idea for a board where each picture and word also had a musical note or short melody attached. "Language is more than words," she said. "For Oliver, it might be sound patterns that create meaning first." "And you think this will help him speak?" The skepticism in Marcus's voice was tempered by a desperate need to believe. "I think it will help him communicate," Sophia corrected gently. "Speech may come later, or it may not. But connection, that can happen in many ways." The next day, Sophia arrived with her handcrafted communication board. Oliver approached it, cautiously at first, then with growing interest as Sophia demonstrated how touching each image produced a specific tone or melody. By afternoon, he was using it to request his snack, pressing the apple picture and looking expectantly at Sophia. "Apple," Sophia said clearly, handing him a slice. "You want an apple?" From the doorway, Marcus watched, his architect's eyes noting the careful construction of connection happening before him. That evening, after Oliver was asleep, Sophia found Marcus in his home office, surrounded by blueprints, but staring instead at a photograph of Eliza. "She was a musician," he said without preamble when he noticed Sophia. "Concert pianist. She would have thought of the musical approach immediately." Self-recrimination laced his words. Sophia sat in the chair opposite his desk. "You've been doing the best you could with what you know," she said. "That's all any of us can do." "Is it enough, though?" Marcus's question seemed directed more at himself than at her. "I design spaces for others to live in, but I can't seem to build the right environment for my own son." "Maybe because you've been trying to build it alone," Sophia suggested quietly. Their eyes met across the desk, and something shifted in the carefully maintained distance between them. Not romantic interest, but something equally powerful, the recognition of a potential partner in the overwhelming task of reaching Oliver. The following weeks brought small but significant changes. Sophia expanded the musical communication system. Oliver began making eye contact more frequently, even initiating interaction by bringing his favorite books to Sophia. Marcus adjusted his schedule to be home for their evening sessions, watching from the periphery before gradually joining in. One rainy afternoon, Sophia entered the living room to find Marcus sitting on the floor with Oliver, attempting to replicate the techniques she'd been using. His efforts were awkward but earnest, and Oliver responded by placing his small hand briefly on his father's arm, a gesture of connection that brought tears to Marcus's eyes. "He's never done that before," Marcus whispered when Oliver moved away. "He trusts you," Sophia said simply. "You're learning his language." That night, after Oliver was asleep, Marcus offered Sophia a glass of wine, and they sat on the terrace despite the lingering drizzle. "Tell me about yourself," he said. Not the therapist, just Sophia. The question surprised her. "What would you like to know?" "Why this work? Why children like Oliver?" Sophia looked out at the rain-washed garden. "My brother Mateo was non-speaking until he was 12. My parents didn't understand him, but I somehow did. We developed our own ways of communicating." She smiled at the memory. "He speaks now. Won't stop talking, actually. He's studying engineering." "So you believe Oliver will speak someday?" "I believe Oliver is already communicating. Whether words follow, that's up to him. Our job is to listen in all the ways we can." Marcus nodded slowly. "I've been a poor listener," he admitted. "Since Eliza died, I've been so focused on fixing things, finding the right therapy, the right approach, that I stopped seeing what Oliver was already trying to tell me." As the rain fell around them, a bridge of understanding continued to form piece by careful piece. Blueprints of trust. The breakthrough came on an ordinary Tuesday, 3 months after Sophia began working with Oliver. They sat in the sunroom, working with picture cards that paired buildings with emotions. Oliver had been engaged, matching skyscrapers with excited and cozy cottages with safe. "This is like Daddy's work," Sophia said, pointing to a blueprint card. "How does this make you feel, Oliver?" Oliver studied the card, then reached for the tablet they used for communication. Instead of selecting an emotion icon, he slowly, deliberately, typed home. Sophia caught her breath. It was the first time he'd typed a word they hadn't specifically practiced. "Yes, blueprints help build homes," she encouraged. Oliver looked directly at her, then typed again, "You, home." The simple phrase carried such weight that Sophia had to blink back tears. "Thank you, Oliver. I feel at home here too." That evening, she showed Marcus the recorded interaction. He watched it repeatedly, his expression shifting from disbelief to wonder to something more complex. "He's never used spontaneous communication like this," Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. "Never." "He's finding his voice," Sophia replied. "It might not be spoken words yet, but it's definitely his voice." The following day, Marcus rearranged his meetings to join their morning session. His presence changed the dynamic. Oliver was more reserved initially, watching his father's reactions. But when Marcus participated in their music-based activities without self-consciousness, Oliver visibly relaxed. During lunch, Oliver surprised them again by bringing his tablet to the table and typing, "Dad, play piano." Marcus froze, sandwich, halfway to his mouth. The baby grand in the music room had remained closed since Eliza's death. "Would you like me to play, Oliver?" Marcus asked carefully. A decisive nod. After lunch, the three made their way to the music room. Dust motes danced in the sunlight as Marcus lifted the cover from the keys, running his fingers lightly over them without pressing down. "I'm not very good," he warned. "Your mother was the musician." Sophia stood back, sensing this moment belonged to father and son alone. Marcus sat on the bench, patting the space beside him. When Oliver joined him, something in Marcus's posture changed. A tension releasing that he'd carried so long, it had become part of him. He began to play, hesitantly at first, then with more confidence. It was a simple melody, one that Sophia recognized as a children's song. Oliver watched his father's hands intently, then reached out to press a key himself. The note hung in the air between them. Marcus played the melody again, leaving a space for Oliver to add his note at the right moment. When he did, Marcus smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. That's it. We're making music together. They played for almost an hour, developing a pattern where Marcus would play and Oliver would respond. When they finally stopped, Oliver leaned briefly against his father's shoulder, a gesture of such normal, casual affection that it momentarily robbed Marcus of words. That evening, after Oliver was asleep, Marcus invited Sophia to his study. Unlike his usual pristine organization, the desk was covered with old photo albums and memorabilia. "I've been hiding these away," he explained, gesturing to the photographs of Eliza. "I thought seeing her would confuse Oliver or remind him of what he'd lost." He ran a hand through his hair. "But I've been wrong about so many things." Sophia sat beside him as he turned pages of the album, showing her Eliza in concert dress at her piano, Eliza cradling newborn Oliver, Eliza laughing, in the garden of this very house. "She was diagnosed with cancer when Oliver was 4, Marcus said. "By then we already knew he was on the spectrum. She worried so much about who would understand him when she was gone." His voice cracked. "I promised her I would, but I've failed. At that?" "You haven't failed," Sophia said firmly. "You've kept him safe, loved, and now you're learning together." She touched one of the photographs gently. "She had a beautiful smile." "Oliver has her smile, on the rare occasions I see it." Marcus closed the album. "Today, when he played the piano with me, I saw it again." Sophia smiled. "Then maybe it's time to open more doors that have been closed." Over the next few weeks, Marcus gradually reintroduced elements of their life from before Eliza's death. Music played again throughout the house. Photographs appeared on walls and shelves. Oliver was given access to videos of his mother playing concerts, which he watched with intense concentration. Simultaneously, Oliver's communication expanded. He began using his tablet more frequently, forming short sentences and asking questions. During one session, he typed, "Mom gone? Why?" The question Sophia had been dreading. She looked to Marcus, who had been participating in more of their sessions. Marcus sat down next to his son. "Mom was very sick, Oliver. Her body stopped working. She didn't want to leave us, but she had to." His voice was gentle but honest. Oliver considered this, then typed, "Sad." "Yes," Marcus agreed, pulling his son into a rare embrace that, remarkably, Oliver accepted. "I'm sad too, but we can be sad and still remember happy things about Mom. And we can make new happy things too." Oliver nodded against his father's chest, then pulled back to type again. "With Sophia?" The simple question held such hope and trust that Sophia felt the weight of it settle around her heart. She looked at Marcus, unsure how to respond. "If that's what you want," Marcus said carefully. "Sophia has been helping us learn new ways to talk and be together." Oliver nodded decisively, then returned to his tablet. Family. The word hung in the air between them, a blueprint for something none of them had planned, but all of them perhaps needed. Storms and foundations. The letter arrived on a brilliant spring morning, nearly 6 months into Sophia's time with the Pattersons. Marcus received it at breakfast, his expression darkening as he read. "Oliver, why don't you show Sophia your new building design while I make a phone call?" he suggested with forced lightness. When he returned 30 minutes later, his face was tight with controlled anger. "My in-laws," he explained tersely after Oliver had gone to prepare for his day. "Eliza's parents. They're filing for custody." Sophia set down her coffee cup. "On what grounds?" "The usual. I work too much. Oliver needs specialized care I can't provide. They've apparently hired a private investigator who's documented my neglect." His laugh was bitter. Photographs of me working late while a hired caretaker is with my son. That's ridiculous, Sophia said. Oliver has made incredible progress. Anyone can see that. They've never accepted his diagnosis, Marcus explained. They blamed me somehow, believed if Eliza had married someone else, had a different life, Oliver would be normal. His tone conveyed years of underlying tension. After she died, they wanted to put him in an institution where he could receive proper treatment. They can't possibly win this, Sophia insisted, though her stomach twisted with uncertainty. They have money, connections, and I have documented history of working 70-hour weeks. Marcus's hands clenched. They're demanding a home evaluation and psychological assessment for Oliver. The storm broke a week later when Richard and Vivian Blackwood arrived with their attorney and a court-appointed evaluator. The Blackwoods were impeccably dressed, radiating wealth and confidence. Vivian swept into the house as if conducting an inspection, her critical gaze lingering on Sophia. "And you are?" she asked coldly. "Sophia Reyes, Oliver's speech therapist," Sophia replied, extending a hand that Vivian ignored. Richard Blackwood addressed Marcus directly. "We've arranged for Oliver to be evaluated at Westlake Behavioral Center. Their autism program is highly regarded." "Oliver isn't going anywhere," Marcus stated flatly. "Any evaluation will happen here, in his home environment." The evaluator, Dr. Franklin, intervened. "That's correct, Mr. Blackwood. The court ordered an in-home assessment first. What followed was excruciating. The Blackwoods criticized everything from Oliver's daily routine to the communication methods Sophia had developed. When Oliver became overwhelmed by the tension and retreated to his calming corner with his tablet, Vivian pointed triumphantly. "You see? He can't even interact normally. He needs professional institutional care." Before Marcus could respond, Oliver's tablet voice activated. "I am interacting. You are making me nervous." The room fell silent. Oliver had never used the speech function of his tablet before, preferring to show his typed messages directly to Sophia or Marcus. Dr. Franklin approached Oliver carefully. "Hello, Oliver. Would you like to tell me how you're feeling?" Oliver typed rapidly, the tablet speaking for him. "Grandfather and grandmother don't listen. They want to take me away. I want to stay with Dad and Sophia." The evaluation continued, with Dr. Franklin spending time alone with Oliver, then with Marcus, and finally with Sophia. When the Blackwoods insisted on private time with their grandson, Oliver became so distressed that Dr. Franklin intervened. "I think we have sufficient information for today," she said diplomatically. After they left, Marcus collapsed onto the sofa, emotionally drained. "This is my fault. If I'd been a better father—" "Stop," Sophia interrupted. "You've become an exceptional father. Oliver knows that, and so does anyone who truly sees you together." The custody battle intensified over the following weeks. The Blackwoods presented evidence of Marcus's workaholic past, while Marcus's attorney showcased Oliver's remarkable progress. Sophia testified about the communication systems they'd developed, presenting data on Oliver's increasing engagement and emotional regulation. The turning point came unexpectedly during a court-mandated supervised visit with the Blackwoods. Oliver brought his tablet and architectural drawings, attempting to share his interests with his grandparents. When Richard dismissed the drawings as childish scribblings, Oliver became upset. "Not childish," the tablet spoke as Oliver typed. "I am designing like Dad, buildings that make people feel safe." "Wouldn't you rather play normal games?" Vivian asked. "Baseball or soccer like other boys?" Oliver typed again, "I am normal for me." The supervisor included this exchange in her report, noting Oliver's clear self-advocacy and the Blackwoods' inability to accept him as he was. 2 days before the final custody hearing, Sophia found Marcus in his office late at night, surrounded by documentation of Oliver's progress. "We might lose him," Marcus said, his voice hollow. The Blackwoods have two child development experts testifying that Oliver needs a more structured environment than I can provide. Sophia sat beside him. We've built something real here, Marcus. Not just therapy, but a home where Oliver can be himself and still grow. We? Marcus looked up, really seeing her for the first time in days. Yes, we, Sophia confirmed. I'm not just Oliver's therapist anymore. I can't pretend I don't care what happens to both of you. Marcus reached for her hand, holding it tightly. I don't know when you became essential to us, he admitted. But you are. The night before the hearing, Oliver appeared in the kitchen, where Sophia and Marcus were reviewing strategy with their attorney. Without prompting, he handed them a drawing, a blueprint of sorts, with 3 figures inside a house. The figures were labeled Dad, Oliver, and Sophia. Family. The caption read, Please tell the judge, home is where we understand. The courtroom was intimidatingly formal, all polished wood and hushed voices. Oliver sat between Sophia and Marcus, his tablet clutched protectively against his chest. The Blackwoods sat across the aisle, Vivian occasionally, dabbing at carefully manufactured tears. Dr. Franklin presented her evaluation first. In my professional opinion, Oliver Patterson is thriving in his current environment. The communication systems developed by Ms. Reyes have facilitated remarkable progress, and Mr. Patterson has adapted his parenting approach to meet Oliver's specific needs. The Blackwoods attorney cross-examined her aggressively. Isn't it true that Oliver still exhibits behaviors consistent with severe autism, that he requires constant specialized care? Oliver is on the autism spectrum, yes, Dr. Franklin replied, calmly. But severe is not a clinical assessment I would apply. He communicates effectively using his tablet, demonstrates emotional awareness, and has formed secure attachments. These are all positive indicators. When Marcus testified, he spoke not as the polished architect or even as the determined father, fighting for custody, but simply as a man who loved his son. I made mistakes after my wife died, he acknowledged. I retreated into work because it was the one area where I felt competent. Oliver needed more than I knew how to give. He looked directly at the judge. Sophia helped us find ways to connect. She didn't just teach Oliver to communicate, she taught me to listen. The Blackwoods testified about their concerns, painting a picture of an overwhelmed single father and a child who needed institutional support. Their expert witnesses spoke about optimal environments for children with autism, none of which seemed to describe the warm, adaptive home that Sophia knew Oliver thrived in. When Sophia's turn came, she spoke directly to the heart of the matter. Oliver doesn't need fixing, she said firmly. He needs understanding. In the 9 months I've worked with him, I've seen him blossom not because we've changed who he is, but because we've built a world around him that respects who he is. The judge, a thoughtful woman with silver-streaked hair, asked, And what is your current role in the household, Ms. Reyes? Are you still primarily a therapist? Sophia hesitated, looking at Marcus. They hadn't defined what had grown between them, the partnership that had evolved naturally as they worked together for Oliver's well-being. My role has evolved, she answered truthfully. I began as Oliver's therapist, but I've become part of their family system. Oliver needs consistency, and Marcus and I have created that together. The final testimony came from an unexpected source. The judge asked if Oliver himself would like to communicate his wishes. When he nodded, the courtroom grew silent as Oliver carefully typed on his tablet. The electronic voice spoke his words. I want to stay with Dad and Sophia. Grandparents want me to be different. Dad and Sophia help me be me. Vivian Blackwood's outburst shattered the solemn moment. This is ridiculous! He's being coached! He can't possibly understand. Mrs. Blackwood, the judge interrupted sharply, your grandson is communicating his preferences quite clearly. I would advise you to listen. The custody ruling came a week later. Primary custody remained with Marcus, with the Blackwoods granted monthly visitation rights contingent upon their participation in a family therapy program to better understand Oliver's needs. As they left the courthouse, Marcus took both Sophia's hand and Oliver's, forming a chain of connection. "We did it," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "We did," Sophia agreed, still processing the reality that it was over. They had won. Oliver tugged on their hands, indicating he wanted to type something. They stopped on the courthouse steps, huddling around his tablet screen. "Can we go home now?" the tablet asked in its electronic voice. "Yes," Marcus answered, looking at Sophia with a question in his eyes. She nodded, understanding the unspoken. "Yes, let's go home. All of us." 3 months later, Sophia moved the last of her belongings into the Patterson home. Her role had officially transitioned. She now consulted for the school district while continuing to develop communication resources for children like Oliver. The Blackwoods, after initial resistance, were slowly learning to accept their grandson on his own terms. On a warm summer evening, the three of them sat in the garden that Sophia had helped revitalize. Oliver was designing a birdhouse using his tablet to calculate dimensions, occasionally showing his work to Marcus for approval. "I have something for you," Marcus said, handing Sophia a small wrapped package. Inside was a house key on a silver chain, accompanied by a miniature blueprint. "What's this?" she asked, examining the tiny architectural drawing. "Plans for the music room extension," Marcus explained. "Oliver and I thought you might like a studio space of your own, for your consultations or just for quiet." Touched, Sophia looked at the detailed drawing. "It's perfect." Oliver moved to stand between them, typing rapidly on his tablet. When he held it up, the message read, "Family officially complete." As the summer twilight deepened around them, Sophia reflected on how language worked, how the most profound communications often came without words. Oliver might never speak aloud the way others did, but he had found his voice. Marcus had found his way back to fatherhood, and she, who had once been just the hired help, had found her home. The evening's quiet was broken by the sound of Oliver's tablet as he typed one final thought for the day. Sometimes silence has the loudest voice. Marcus and Sophia exchanged smiles over Oliver's head, acknowledging the truth of his observation. In this house built on understanding, every form of language was honored. Spoken and unspoken, traditional and invented, the blueprint drawings of a boy who saw the world differently, and the silent bonds of a family created not by blood but by choice.